my name is Celeste, and welcome to episode 26 of Yarn to Table, a podcast about my knitting life. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Celeste Full on Ravelry and Instagram. I do keep my Ravelry project pages very well up to date, so if you have any questions, of course you can ask me directly, but you can also check those out. And under the blogs tab on there, you can also find links to any of the relevant episodes of this podcast where I talked about different projects that you see that you may be interested in seeing in more detail. We also have a Ravelry group. It is Yarn to Table. You can find the link for it in the doobly-doo. You can also find it just by searching for Yarn to Table. And that is where you're going to find knit-alongs, giveaways, and introduce yourself thread and ask me anything thread, fun stuff like that. If this is your very first time watching me, thank you so much for checking me out. Thank you to all the returning viewers as well, of course. If you do see something that you like, I hope you will hit the subscribe button so that you can come back. And if you want to be more involved, definitely check out the Ravelry group. And I'd love to have you introduce yourself in there as well. As I said, there's an introduce yourself thread, so I can get an idea of who you are and where you're coming from, and yeah, all that fun stuff. Also, if you appreciate this video, it helps me out a lot if you hit the thumbs up button right down there. That'll help other people find me, so I appreciate that so much. So as I said, we do run cowls or knit-alongs out of the Ravelry group, and we have one going on right now, which is the summer garment cowl. I am co-hosting this with Anna of the Dunkelgrün podcast, and it is running all the way through the end of August, so there is still some time to knit a garment, especially a summer garment, as some of those don't take as much time as full-blown sweaters. So you can check out the thread in the Ravelry group to see what constitutes a summer garment. It can be a sweater if it's done in a lightweight yarn like a cotton or linen or a silk. It can also be a sleeveless or short sleeve garment of some kind. So yeah, if you're interested in joining us, definitely check that out. And if you are knitting your summer garment, that's fantastic. We have had some really, really great finished objects already showing up in the thread, and you do have another month, which should be plenty of time. So keep on knitting, and thank you for joining us. It's been a really fun cowl, and I'm excited to see what else you guys are knitting up for it. Today I am back on the warm tea, just because it hasn't been so excruciatingly hot lately, and I didn't have any more iced tea in the fridge this morning. It takes overnight for me to brew it the way I've been doing it. So yeah, so I'm back on this, and I'm hoping that I don't get overheated because, as you can see, I am wearing a sweater, and the reason I'm wearing a sweater, which returning viewers will know, is that this is my finished object for the week. Gosh, is there anything better than finishing a garment? Like, it feels so good, so good. There was a viewer who posted her summer garment in the FO thread, and the photo of her was just like her running into the room, like so excited about it. And she said something about like, you know, sorry about the crazy photo, but like, this is the face I make when I just finished a garment. And I was like, you didn't even have to explain, girl. Like, that is the face I make too. Like, I could tell by how excited she was in the picture. I was like, she has just put this thing on, and like, that feeling is so great. I mean, any finished object feeling is great, but garments especially, because they take longer and they cost more money for the yarn, and they're a little bit more complicated to make because of the fitting and everything, and when you put it on, you're just like, yes, yes. It's a great feeling. Anyway, so I finished my garment. This is the first garment I've finished since my project for the Great Unravel, which I finished in June. And it's the first sweater I've finished since, I want to say, March. So yeah, so it's you know, I don't want to say a rare feeling, but it's, you know, I'm not finishing a sweater every single week, so I like to celebrate when it happens, is what I'm saying. Anyway, this pattern is called Andromeda. It is by Pam Allen, And I've shown it many times on the podcast. I'll stand up so that you can kind of see it a little better here. It's very long and swingy. It has this garter stitch ridge all the way around the edge, and then it has these big garter stitch lapels that sort of become longer triangles in the front. They get wider, and garter stitch on the sleeves. Raglan shaping, seamlessly knit from the top down, and the garter goes all the way around the neck, of course. So I did this in Hedgehog Fiber Skinny Singles in the pine colorway, which I fell in love with, and then went looking for a garment to knit with it. As I've said before, it's not necessarily recommended that you knit garments out of singles yarn. So that caveat, I guess I would say do as I say, not as I do. But we'll find out. It's going to be an adventure for you and me together to find out how well this cardigan holds up to wear, I guess. That said, it is extremely soft, which I like a lot. I think the fit is pretty good. I will say I have a little bit of extra space in the sort of sleeves, shoulders. And because of that, the sleeves, I think I could have knit a little shorter. They are 3/4 length. On the model, they sort of end here. On me, they're ending more like here. And even that is when I've sort of pushed up to get the sleeve to kind of like rest properly. Like if the seam was all the way into my armpit, then I think they would be a good length. But when I first put the sweater on, I sort of have to push the sleeves to where they do rest there properly. And otherwise, like the sleeve wants to just sort of hang out like at this awkward length. So I don't know how much sense that makes. But basically, because there's a little extra room here, it ends up kind of making the sleeves rest in a weird space. And I think I could have kind of mitigated that to some extent if I had the presence of mind to knit the sleeves shorter. Now, I was trying it on when I was knitting the first sleeve and deciding whether I was going to knit the same number of rows that the pattern suggested or whether I was going to kind of cut it off sooner. And I did end up knitting exactly what the pattern suggested. And like I said, I think it's a little long. At the time, I was just sort of, you know, I only had one sleeve and I was kind of trying to line it up properly here, and not really getting the full effect of how I might want to just throw it on and let it be able to sort of be a little bit baggier up here and still hit in a good spot on my arm. So I think if I had it to go back, I might make them a little shorter, but it's not a huge deal. This is, you know, just like a nice cozy thing that I can throw on, and you know, the fit, because it's such a big swingy cardigan, I guess is what I'm saying, like the fit I don't think has to be absolutely perfect. I do wish it were better, but I always knew this might be a bit of an issue with this because I sized down the needles a lot in order to get the fabric that I wanted, and so then I ended up knitting a larger size than I would have knit, and just sort of there was a bit of a gamble involved in all of that, and you know, I'm sure I could have done a better job of like checking the gauge and measuring it and making sure it was perfect, but I didn't. So that's what you get when you do that. That's okay. You know, I have knit 3 sweaters for myself and 1 other garment, and none of them have been exactly perfectly what I wanted them to be. And I just don't think that you can get too caught up in, you know, letting that kind of ruin it for you, I guess. Like, I do think I want to start spending more time planning garments ahead of time, like more time, not just on gauge and figuring out like what size and what needles and making sure that I'm knitting the right size, but also thinking about the style of the sweater more, and how I'm gonna wear it, what I'm gonna wear it with, you know, how it's gonna look on my body type, things like that. I think I would like to spend more time on that, just so that I have more sweaters that are more wearable. But at the same time, like any sweater that I make, I do love because I've made it. So it's easier for me to like overlook those little flaws in a way that if it were a store-bought sweater, I wouldn't wear it, you know, because I'd be like, well, this doesn't fit perfectly. But when you've made it yourself, it's like easier to love it anyway, I guess. So yeah, that's sort of, you know, I think we could all probably take some more time to do better planning and gauge swatching and things like that, and you know, have better results. But at the same time, we do this for fun, so it's like I'm only gonna do as much of that as is fun. And in the case of this sweater, I knit a fair amount and then ripped back because I didn't like the fabric I was getting. And so I ripped back and changed needles. And when you're doing that, like at a certain point, it's not fun and you're not like hyped up about the sweater anymore. You're just sort of frustrated that you're not getting the effect you want. So it's like, I think you have to kind of strike a balance between planning so much that it feels like a job and not a hobby anymore, and not planning enough and therefore not being happy with the product that you create. It's that product process sort of balance that I think we're all learning to strike in our knitting. So this is my finished object. I do also have 3 whips to share with you, and 2 of them are brand new, so that's very exciting. Obviously, when you're getting things off the needles, it gives you permission to cast more things on the needles. And I'm a person who does not like to have a ton of whips going at the same time, just because it super stresses me out. But lately, like the last week or so, I was really getting down to where I hardly had anything going at all. So even the whip that you've seen before is pretty brand new. You've only seen it one other time. And that is my new vanilla socks. So I really have got to a point where I like made it through everything that had been on the needles for a long time, and everything is kind of new now, which is exciting. So these socks, they are living in my 9 3/4 bag from Society 6, and they are Harry Potter themed. This yarn is Nora George. It's her regular sock base, I'm not sure what she calls it, and the colorway is Fred and George. It is kind of a stripy variegated with this mustard color, and then sections that are a creamy base with speckled neon. And then my Progress Keeper is from a Homespun House Harry Potter Club with Sucra miniatures. This is from her latest, and it's the birthday cake from the first book and movie that Hagrid makes for Harry. So yeah, as I mentioned, this yarn, here it is caked up, I really was expecting to have some pooling with it. And I am pleasantly surprised because I'm not a big fan of pooling. Honestly, I'm a little bit confused as to why it's not, because like I said before, it's like about half and half. Like I feel like about half the skein is the mustard color and half the skein is the neon speckles. And I would not expect that to be so stripy, but it is for whatever reason. So on the one hand, I'm kind of disappointed at my own ability to know when something will pool. I feel like maybe I need to do some more research into that. But on the other hand, I'm pleased with how it's knitting up because I really like that sort of stripy effect. This yarn is wild. Like, It's been growing on me. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it at first. I loved it in the skein, but in the skein, the two colors were very separated, right? And together, the neon's so close to the mustard, like that's a lot of look, you know? And so I had some reservations, but as I've been knitting it, I've been liking it more and more. And I definitely think that it has just that energy of the Weasley twins. Like it's just, I've kind of been letting them be my guide as I knit it and just sort of trying to have their spirit about it. Like they're just wild and fun and weird. And I like that there's the duality of the two colors in this, the mustard and then the neon, because I feel like that's the two of them. So I definitely think like the inspiration behind this has been kind of guiding me to appreciate it. And the more I knit it, the more I like it. So yeah, it's definitely crazy colors, but I'm kind of into it. It's definitely fun to knit. Like it's fun when the neon speckles come up to see like which ones they are and stuff. I mean, there's like no question that knitting with something like this is more fun than knitting with a plainer yarn, because it just keeps your interest, especially when you're doing a vanilla sock. So yeah, I always like to have a vanilla sock ready for on-the-go knitting, and that is what this is right now. I was like about here when I showed you guys last, and then I knit all of this yesterday at my dad's birthday party. He turned 60 on Friday, and then Saturday, which was yesterday, we had a big birthday party, well, my mom threw it, at their house around their pool with a bunch of family friends, and it was really fun. Lots of kids running around, and there were 3 of us there that were knitting, and me and 2 of my mom's friends were all knitting, and yeah, it was nice. So I got in some good travel knitting, not technically travel knitting, I guess, but on-the-go knitting. I think vanilla socks are good for not just car knitting, but also like party knitting, because they're so mindless and portable. So I like that. This is my long tail cast on 1x1 twisted rib for 10 rows. And then I'm almost to the place where I'm going to be putting in my fish lips Casil. So I think that's some good progress for an afternoon of knitting by the pool. And I didn't knit the whole time I was there by any means. I spent about half the time in the pool running after children, and then about half the time relaxing, knitting by the side of the pool and talking with people. So, okay, so now 2 more whips and they are both brand new. Can you contain your excitement? I know I can't. What should I show you first? Okay, I'm going to show you the newest one first. I cast this on yesterday. No, Friday. Yes, Friday. Doesn't matter. Friday, I get off work at 3 on Fridays in the summertime. And so when I got off, I went to a wine bar to work on some papers that I needed to write for my MFA. And then a friend met me there, and we had a drink. And then, so I came home, you know, a little later than I normally would. And I told myself I was just going to cake out this yarn. I was like, I'm not even knitting tonight. Like, it's late. I'm just going to read and go to sleep. But first, I'm just going to cake up this yarn just so that it's ready for me. And, you know, I just couldn't. Like, after I caked it up, it just wanted to be knit just for a little bit, So I did just 2 8-row repeats on this new shawl. So it's not a lot, but it was a lot of fun. And honestly, like, it was sort of more complicated knitting than I probably should have been doing in my late night sleepy state, but I just was like feeling it. So I'll show you what this is in. It's my La Bien-Aimée bag, which this just looks like a tote bag, but it actually has some really great interior pockets where I can put, like, there's my pattern, and then I actually have my working skein, my working cake in this other pocket, just to kind of keep it separate from the others, to keep it from tangling too much. And here's my project. So, you may know what this is if you've listened to me talk in the past about what I wanted to knit soon. The yarn is Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Glitter, which is a beautiful brown and rusty orange fall color. So this is my, like, it's officially fall. I mean, it's not officially fall. This is my, I can't wait until it's officially fall knit, like my pre-fall knit. Like, I want to have this ready and wear it in the fall. And I felt like late July is basically August, which is basically September, which is fall. So wishful thinking, or, you know, knitting ahead, however you want to think of it. This is my first fall project, and boy, am I excited about it, because fall, you guys, fall, the best time of the year. This is Void, which is a shawl by Melanie Berg that has this incredibly beautiful texture pattern. So you can see it makes these lovely little diamonds with a kind of faux cable twisted stitch situation. And then the inside of the diamonds is stockinette and reverse stockinette to create a really nice texture. And the shape of the shawl is going to be a big, big, big old crescent. It is a worsted weight shawl, so the color I feel is very fall, but also the weight is definitely a cooler weather shawl. And it's taking 4 skeins, so it's going to be very large. And it starts, you can see here is my end, so it started here in the middle, and then it's growing out from there. And the repeat is 8 rows. It has written instructions and a chart in the pattern, which is nice because people have different preferences. I'm a chart girl, so I've been working from the chart. And so it's an 8-row repeat, and I have done 2 of the repeats so far. There are 13 repeats in all, but obviously each time you do a repeat, or really each time you do a row, it gets longer. So the first couple repeats, you know, I am by no means like 20% of the way through the shawl or whatever, just because I'm like that far through the repeats. I'm not even 20% through the repeats, because that's not how fractions work. 2 is not 20% of 13. It's 20% of 10, but I'm not going to do the math to see what percent it is of 13 right now, because I just don't feel like it. But you get what I'm saying. I'm 2 repeats in, but every repeat's going to be longer as I go. I have my little pumpkin pie on there, again, just to like strike that fall mood. Pretty into it. And let's see, what do I want to say about this? The pattern, the texture is, I don't think, ever going to be memorizable. I think it's a little too complicated for memorizable, but I do think it's intuitive. It's already intuitive, like it's very easy as you're going to read your knitting and figure out quite soon after you make a mistake, like that you've made a mistake and you're not lined up properly. That's not a problem. And as you're going, you can sort of see ahead. Like once I was in my second repeat, I was kind of like, yeah, this is the part where I do this. So I would say intuitive, but not memorizable. So this is going to be, you know, not mindless knitting. This is going to be knitting for when I'm feeling like concentrating a little bit, following that chart. I'm going to need the chart with me all the time. So probably not party knitting, but I think it can be television knitting. That's sort of my distinction. Like I can watch TV and do something like this, but I can't necessarily have a conversation and be fully present and do something like this. But I am in that mood right now for something that takes a little bit more concentration. I've been doing a lot of mindless stuff lately, and that's nice. And it's been sort of necessary because I needed mindless knitting while I was in Cambridge. And, you know, for things like my dad's birthday party or whatever. But I'm definitely in the mood for something that's just slightly more challenging and has that wow factor. And, you know, the result, when you get a beautiful pattern like this, it's really worth the extra time it takes to do, to follow a chart instead of just doing like a big garter shawl. I just think it's so beautiful. I think that I did a really good job of matching the yarn to the pattern. I think this yarn and pattern go beautifully together. You don't lose the yarn in the pattern and you don't lose the pattern in the yarn. I'm not always the best at that, so when I am good at it, I get pretty excited. Sometimes I try to make things work even though I know better. Like I pick a yarn and a pattern and I know better, but I'm just trying to force it. There's no forcing. Like these are beautiful together. They want to be together. So that's really nice. And I think I'm going to work on this when I finish the podcast later today because I have a bunch of time to just chill out because it's Sunday and I can watch some podcasts and really just focus on my knitting, which is like a really special time. So it's nice to have a project that's good for those times when your knitting really is your focus and not just something for your hands to do. So I'm very excited about this. Oh, the other thing that I am doing is I'm trying out pulling from the outside of the cake. I'm usually a center pull girl. In fact, even when I wound these, I made sure my center pull was ready. But I heard on some podcast, and I wish I could remember who so that I could credit them, but I was trying out a lot of new podcasts this last week, so I watched a lot of different ones. So I cannot remember. But somebody was saying that, and actually she was saying that another podcaster had been talking about this. And I think the other podcaster she said was the Stress Knits podcast. But anyway, she was talking about how she always thought that if you pulled from the outside of the ball, it would just be rolling around everywhere and be madness. But that this other podcaster had said, actually, you just set it like that and it pulls off the top perfectly, which you can see it does. And then the cake doesn't collapse in on itself. It just becomes a smaller cake, but it's still tightly wrapped, which sounds really nice to me. Now, I was a little skeptical of it because I tend to knit in like weird places where my cake isn't necessarily always going to have a flat surface to just sit on. Like if I were knitting at a table, fine. But a lot of times I'm knitting in a car and I want to stuff my cake in like a cup holder and pull from the middle. And I don't think you can pull from the outside if it's in a cup holder. Or I want it to just be sitting in my lap or sometimes sitting inside a bag and not necessarily a perfect bag that like folds open. It might just be sitting in one of these like on its side like that. And when you do a center pull, you can just have the cake any old way and it works. So for this, I get that it's not necessarily going to be rolling around, but I'm not yet sure how well it's going to work if it isn't just perfectly sitting like this. And I'd rather have something that's versatile than feel like when I knit on this project, I have to be at a table, you know, like that's just not my style. So this is going to be my experiment. It's nice because it's a worsted weight, so I only have however many yards. If I don't like it, then when I open up my next cake, I can just go back to center pull ball. As I said, I wound them so that I could pull them from the center. So I think this is going to be a perfect little experiment for me to see if I like this or not. So far, since I've only done it once, I'm not 100%. Now, how I knit before, I was actually sitting in my bed, which I don't usually do, but as I said, I wasn't planning on knitting that night, and then I just had to. So I had it sitting on the bed next to me, and because of that, it was like, you know, it was on top of like a fluffy duvet, and So it wasn't necessarily sitting perfectly still. It would get like tilted or bent or whatever. And it wasn't necessarily as easy as pulling from the center, but it also wasn't a big deal. It wasn't flying all over the place. I didn't think it was as great as the center pull, but if this can help me to not have problems with tangles, or you know, the collapsing ball like at the end isn't super easy to knit from, so you know, it might all come out a wash and just break even and be like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know, we'll find out. What I might do if I don't hate this is make this my strategy for singles yarn, because I don't usually have trouble with tangling in center pull balls except for singles yarn. I had some issues when I was knitting this sweater where I actually had to re-cake 2 of the cakes because their tangles were getting so bad that I couldn't deal with them. And that's not fun at all. So if I don't love this but I don't hate it, it might just become my new singles yarn strategy if I can remember to implement it when I'm caking singles yarn. Well, not when I'm caking it, but when I start knitting from it. So we'll see. We will see how that goes. Let me know what your strategy is. What's your preference? Because I'm curious. And if you don't cake yarn, if you just roll it by hand, do you use one of those yarn bowls? Is that what you like? Do you just sort of toss it down in your project bag and let it roll around inside there? What's your preference? What did you used to do? What do you do now? Why do you like it better? I mean, this is like the kind of ridiculously prosaic knitting stuff that I find fascinating because I am a total nerd. Okay, one more whip for you guys. In my field bag with my little pins on it, I'm knitting another stuffy. So the last stuffy I knit was the little dragon for my mom. And this one is also a gift. This is for my husband. I'm just going to show you. It's a raccoon. Oh my gosh. Oh, right? So cute. Okay, so this pattern is called Pippin the Raccoon, and it is by Julie L. Anderson. It is available, well, you can find it on Ravelry. You actually buy it through KnitPicks. I mean, it was a downloadable PDF. I didn't have to wait for them to mail it to me or something. But yeah, so, and I'm knitting it out of KnitPicks yarn, Stroll, in the Dove Heather, which is my like go-to gray. And they're black, and then there's going to be white as well, duplicate stitched on for the eyes. Let me show you the picture, what it's going to look like. So this pattern actually can be knit in 3 different sizes, and you use the same instructions. You just knit it with different weights of yarn. Here they are. I'm knitting the smallest one, which I think is meant to be about 6 inches tall. And I'm doing it out of fingering weight, obviously. So you can do, I think it's like DK and worsted weight, and it's exactly the same instructions. It just makes it larger. I am knitting it with US size 0 needles, which are 2 millimeter. These are just some KnitPicks. They're Caspian double pointed needle set, which I think is what they call the green shade of their really pretty wooden needles. So yeah, for stuffies, I do find that double points are a lot easier for me than magic loop. Plus I don't have a size 0 magic loop. But I've been enjoying it. So I've knit on this just on 2 separate occasions. The first one, I did the legs and the arms, which are here, and the tail. And then on the second occasion, I started to knit actually, I might have not even knit the tail. And then the second occasion, I think I did the tail and I did the body. And so what you do is you have the limbs sort of like hanging out with live stitches, and then you join them as you go up so that it's sort of seamless, which is nice. I really like a seamless stuffy, which you can find. I mean, I think a lot of the stuffy patterns these days are seamless because a lot of people prefer that, and there are smart pattern designers that are giving the people what they want. So yeah, as you can see, the fabric I'm getting on this is quite dense, which is exactly what you want for a stuffy. So you can't see the cotton showing through. That is exactly what you want. Well, it's polyfill. I don't know why I called it cotton. So for fingering weight, I definitely wouldn't use any larger than a 2mm, a US size 0. If I were doing, like when I've done a worsted weight stuffy, I think I've gone down to maybe even a US 5 or 4. You always want to be at least 1 or 2 needle sizes smaller than what you would knit for like a garment or a hat or something normal, because when it stretches, and it's going to stretch a little bit when you fill it, you don't want to be able to see the polyfill on the inside. So you always want a really dense fabric for your stuffy. And these are actually the needles that they recommended in the pattern. Sometimes I will go even smaller than what they recommend because I tend to be somewhat of a loose knitter, and a lot of times I don't think your fabric can be really too dense for a stuffy. These are the needles they recommended. If I had had a needle size smaller, I probably would have used it, but I didn't. So I used this, and I think it's fine. I do think they could be denser, but you can't see any polyfill. So I really do think it's fine. So I'm pleased with that. And I haven't knit on it in a few days, but I will find some time for it this week coming up. So my husband's birthday is on August 8th, and I want this to be his birthday present. So I'm going to finish it at some point before then. Hopefully, ideally, I will finish it before next week's podcast. That way I can show it to you guys finished. Although, I mean, it's not like it's going as a gift to somebody in another home, so I could still show it to you finished, I guess, the next week, even though I'd already given it to him. So I guess it doesn't really matter. But, yeah, so what else did I want to say about this? Oh, of course, the face. The face is going to be done in intarsia. And so the white part, I believe, is duplicate stitch, but the black of the eyes will be done in intarsia. And I'm pretty excited because it's intarsia in the round, which I haven't done before. And I have looked up how it's done, and it's actually pretty simple and pretty brilliant. It's so I think I'm gonna describe that to you guys once I actually have it in front of me to show you, because it'll be easier to describe, and not like giving away the pattern obviously, but just the technique of intarsia in the round, which is something that they didn't invent for this pattern. It's, there's information about it online. But I think I'm going to talk you guys through how that works and how cool it is when I actually have the project like that, when I'm actually to that point in the project, so that I have it in front of me to show you guys. So yeah, look forward to that. But if you have done intarsia before, or even if you haven't but you know how intarsia works, you're probably like, I just can't even imagine how you would do that in the round. Like, that's crazy. And I had the same thought, and then I saw that there was like a really neat trick to it, and I think it's awesome. So, if you're really curious and you can't wait to find out, you can just Google it. But otherwise, I'll show you guys how I'm doing it once I'm doing it. So I don't have anything to talk about for On the Horizon because I think I've mentioned everything recently that I want to start working on, but I do have one thing for stash enhancement to share. So while I was in Cambridge, I was in an Uber scrolling through Instagram, and I saw that Molly from A Homespun House had a post about how she had opened up pre-orders for a Gilmore Girls One Time Only sock set. And I was immediately like, yep, yes, navigate to, yes, PayPal, done. Like, I was just like, that will be happening, thank you. Now, just first of all, y'all know that like while I was right around the time that I went to Cambridge, I was in like a big yarn buying kick. You guys all saw the stash enhancement. There was a lot of yarn bought. This was a part of that. It has just now come. It is so exciting. So if you've watched me for a while, you may know that I co-host an auditory podcast about Gilmore Girls. It's a spoiler-free rewatch. We're about to start season 6. We've been doing it for 3 years. We have about another year left. I do it every week. We're actually on a break right now because we're between seasons. But this is like a huge thing for me. So it's called Return to Stars Hollow, by the way, iTunes and Stitcher. If you're into that kind of thing, you can look it up. So Molly had actually just started watching Gilmore Girls like this year, and she was like, why have I never watched this before? This is so great, which a lot of people are finding it lately because it's on Netflix and then they had the revival and everything. So she apparently loved it so much that she wanted to do a little mini club, and I, as you know, worship everything that Molly ever dyes. I think her yarn is so incredibly beautiful. So I was like, yes, please. And I have a lot of ideas in my mind for what Gilmore Girls inspired yarn could be. Like, as I've started dyeing my own yarn, I have thought about some different inspiration from Gilmore Girls, actually, and like what I have a lot of ideas. So the idea that she was going to just have one sock set, like I was like, what would it be? Like, what would be the ultimate Gilmore Girls sock set, the ultimate inspiration if you could only do one? And I really think she nailed it. Like, this sock set encompasses the energy that is Gilmore Girls. Of course, it's food inspired. And I'm going to show it to you and tell you what it's called. So, the big skein, the pink skein, is called the Pop-Tart Dilemma. And the mini skein is called Coffee, Coffee, Coffee. So Coffee, Coffee, Coffee is, of course, a line from Gilmore Girls when Lorelai is, and she goes into Weston's and tries to order coffee, and she says, coffee, 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 and then they bring her 3 coffees. She's like trying to make a cute joke, but the idea is that like they don't know her there. And then the Pop-Tart Dilemma is this thing in season 7 where Lorelai suddenly starts to question like whether all the choices that she's made in her life and everything that she likes is just because her parents didn't like it. And she's like, do I even like Pop-Tarts, or do I just think I like Pop-Tarts because my parents would be horrified if I ate a Pop-Tart? So that's the story. Pop-Tarts and coffee, of course, are also things that run throughout Gilmore Girls as just like constant references, constantly in the background, people eating Pop-Tarts and drinking coffee. It's a thing. So I want to make these into socks with heels, cuffs, and toes and call them Pop-Tarts and coffee socks. And I have the perfect progress keeper because, yes, the club also came with a progress keeper. And it's a coffee and Pop-Tart progress keeper. Can you even stand it? Like, look at how cute this is. Isn't it the freaking cutest sock set you've ever seen? I cannot wait. I'm not casting them on right now because if you haven't noticed, I have a lot of discipline when it comes to keeping my whips in check. And I have Fred and George socks on the needles right now. But these will be going on soon. Sometime very soon. I can assure you of that. So another kind of stash enhancement thing that I want to share is some of my own hand-dyed yarn. As some of you know, I've started experimenting. I've started dyeing at home, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time. It's been hard to find the time for it because I work full-time and go to school full-time and have 2 podcasts because I'm insane. But I have made some time for it recently and it's been really, really, really fun. I'm not going to show you everything that I've dyed. I will probably give you some updates, here and there when there's something that I like a lot. I don't know. Let me know how interested you are in that, what you want to see. But I do want to show you these skeins because I like them a lot. You will have seen them on Instagram if you follow me. But this is something that I did. I'll show you this one in more up close. It's got pale greens and grays and speckles of neon green and lots of black speckles over it all. And I think it just turned out so incredible. I didn't really know what it was going to look like as I was doing it. Like, it was like the dyes were just telling me what to do. And I think it looks so freaking beautiful. So I was asking people on Instagram and Facebook what I should name it, and I got a lot of really, really amazing suggestions. Thank you if you're one of the people that sent me one. But I ended up coming up with something myself that I like, which is Blackwater, inspired by the Battle of the Blackwater in Game of Thrones, because it's a battle that takes place at night, and it's called the Blackwater, and then there are these crazy explosions of wildfire, which is this neon green color. So that neon green against the black really reminded me of that scene, and I've been rewatching Game of Thrones lately because of the new season. So I had recently seen that battle, which is one of my favorite episodes ever of the series. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So lots of other amazing suggestions for names. A lot of people said that it looked like moss on a rock, which I completely agree with. People said avocado toast. I mean, it's funny, all of the different things that the same colorway can inspire. But I have decided to call it Blackwater, and I am just in love with it. Like, this is the first thing that I've dyed that I feel like even if I saw it and somebody else had done it, if I saw it in a shop, I would be like, wow, that is gorgeous. I love that yarn. So it's really exciting when you actually make something like that yourself. So I'm very proud of it, and hopefully I will have many more exciting colorways in the future. So I'm trying to decide what I want to do with this. Obviously I can make more skeins of it. So I just have the 2 right now, but if there's a project that I want to make that takes more, then I can do more. But I'm thinking I want to do some kind of shawl with this because it's very special. And yeah, I'm definitely going to make more of it because it's so pretty. But these skeins are very special to me, so I really want to put them into something special for myself. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move on to chit chat. If you are only interested in knitting stuff, thank you for joining us. Subscribe if you haven't yet, hit the thumbs up thingy, and come back again. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you are sticking around for chit chat, let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. Books, you guys, more books, yeah! So, I talked about my primary required reading for my MFA for this semester, and a lot of you guys really enjoyed that conversation, which I wasn't sure if you would. It was just sort of all I was thinking about. But I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. Some of you said you wanted to hear more once I had read the books, what I thought about them, so that will be coming soon. But before then, I have more MFA books to share with you guys, and that is because I'm taking a class on the graphic novel. So the main core of my MFA degree is the work that I'm doing for my main mentor, and that's my own creative writing and those books that I showed you before, writing annotations on them, sort of reading stuff that's very close to the kind of stuff that I'm writing myself, and learning from it. The other component is what's called the IS, or the interdisciplinary study, and it can be cross-genre, it can be independent study of things like research or whatever is going to help you in your own creative writing. It can be pedagogy, which is the study of teaching, all kinds of stuff like that. So what I'm mostly interested in is cross-genre stuff, and I wanted to take a class on the graphic novel because I love reading them and I've always wanted to try to write something myself. So this class involves writing a kind of annotation of a graphic novel and then creating something yourself involving an outline, a script, and then the final deliverable, which I will be illustrating myself even though I'm not an artist. So I'm so excited. It's about to start. And I was talking with my husband yesterday about what I should choose for my an annotation, which is my first assignment. And you know, I could reread something that I already like and write it on that, but it would be nice to read something new. And there are a few things that are on my to-read list that my husband has already read, things that he's recommended to me. So two of these two are things that he has recommended, that he's already read, that he thought might be good for this. And then the other two are things that were on my shelf that are to read, but I hadn't read yet. What I decided I wanted to do, I'm sorry, my nose is so itchy right now. I don't know why. Okay. So what I decided I wanted to do was read a bunch of stuff, all with like an annotation in mind, like what might I write about if I were to make my annotation on this. And, you know, because graphic novels read pretty quickly. So I would do that, and then I would decide what I wanted to write it on, or if I wasn't super inspired by any of the new stuff, I might go and grab something that I've already read and write it on that. So this is what I have pulled to do that with, and actually last night I read this one. So this is one of the ones that my husband recommended. It is called In Real Life, and it's about a gamer girl, which is not something that I know anything about. She plays in like a massive multiplayer role-playing game like World of Warcraft, and through it she like meets some people on the other side of the world, and sort of like has a discovery. I don't really want to give it away too much, but the art is really, really good. And it's cool because there are these characters, like this is this person in real life, and this is her avatar. And so you'll have these scenes that are very normal, everyday stuff from this girl's life. But then she gets into the game, right? And you'll have this kind of stuff. So this is her in real life, and then this is her avatar. That's her avatar. And so that's just like really fun to see how they create these different worlds. Like one page you're here, and then you turn the page and you're here and you're in this world, right? And they illustrate it like you're really in that world. Like these characters are talking and they're living in this world. It's not like a person in front of a screen. You know, it feels very three-dimensional, which I thought was a really good use of the form. So yeah, so I read that last night. It was pretty good. And then the other one that Ryan suggested is this larger one, The Best We Could Do, which this is nonfiction. It's a memoir, which I am interested in because that's, you know, that's my genre. That's what I write for my creative writing, you know, in my MFA. That's what I'm focused on. Not that I haven't written fiction before. And yeah, so this is by Thi Bui. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right because I don't speak Vietnamese or have any idea of what letters make what sounds in Vietnamese. But he says it's really, really good. So I haven't read this one yet, but I'll just give you an idea of the art style. Don't really know the best pages to open to because I haven't read it, but there you go. Yeah, so I'm going to be checking this out. And then here are the ones that were already on my shelf. Emiko Superstar is by one of my favorite graphic novel writers, Mariko Tamaki, and illustrated by this Steve guy. And here's an idea of the art. Steve Rolston. I didn't mean to say this Steve guy, I just didn't remember his name. So she's one of my favorite writers. She did this incredible book called Slim and another really good book called This One Summer. And so I was looking up her other stuff. This one, I feel like it was out of print or something because I had to order it from Amazon and get this copy that used to belong to a library. But I ordered it last year after I had gone on like a big graphic novel kick and I had read a lot of stuff, including a couple other things by her. But then I just haven't gotten around to looking at it yet. So that's one of the ones I'm going to look at. And then around the same time, I got this, which is called Same Difference in Other Stories. And it's by Kirk Kim. And here's an idea of the art style of this. And I actually picked this up at an independent bookstore in Cleveland when my husband and I were there last year. This really, really cool bookstore there. I will try to remember to look up the name of it and put it in the show notes for you. If you're ever in Cleveland, like, this is a must-see, one of the best independent bookstores I've ever been to. They had a really good graphic novel section, and I found this. And that was also in the middle of my kick. Like June of last year, I was reading like 3 graphic novels a day. I was just like all about it. Yeah, so I picked this up, and then I just was reading other stuff and didn't end up getting to it. So that's one on the list as well. So I'll let you guys know how that turns out, and you know, maybe at some point I'll show you what I'm working on when I'm actually working on it, which is going to be more like in October and November, when I'm actually into the illustrating and laying out and really finalizing that project. But yeah, this is gonna be fun. I'm excited about it. So I hope you enjoyed getting a look at that part of my life again. And thank you again for coming and joining me and talking about knitting. I love you guys so much. If you are new, I love you too, just as much. Thank you. Like, you don't know how exciting it is that I get to sit down and talk about my knitting every week with other people who love knitting, and like watch other podcasts and check out other people's projects when you post in the Ravelry group, especially for our knit-alongs and stuff. It is so great to have this community. So I love you guys. Thank you for coming back, and I will see you next time.